We're now 50 hours till Super Bowl 60. That clock will continue to count down. It's going to be here before we know it. And let's continue the conversation around JSN. Mina, obviously, with the ball in his hands, he's so dynamic. But you've noticed some things when he doesn't even have the ball that you wanted to point out.
And I think it's part of why he was such a deserving Offensive Player of the Year, because of the gravity he exerts on the field. One of the stats that I love, on throws over 10 yards, when the Seahawks throw to a receiver not named JSN, that receiver is twice as likely as your average NFL receiver to be wide open, or also significantly more likely to be open, period. So if it's Cooper Kupp or whenever you're watching a Seahawks game, you're like, how is A.J. Barner so damn wide open? A lot of the time it is because of the attention paid to JSN. He's also really impactful in the screen game. We've been talking about Walker as a receiver. A couple plays from the ends of the season. This is in the Rams game. So often they run these post-over concepts with JSN. This is a two-man concept. Watch the Rams defensive. Probably the entire secondary follows JSN. So you get the little throwback screen. You got a numbers advantage, which of course is very helpful. But in addition to the numbers and the blockers, look at all the grass in front of Kenneth Walker. You can even see the defense. When they see Sam Darnold turn his back, they assume he's going to throw to JSN, because so often Seattle does. Again, this is a couple weeks later against San Francisco. JSN on the inbreaker once again pulls the safety, throw the screen. Again, you have the numbers, but you also have so much grass. This is a big part of why Kenneth Walker has become impactful as a receiver. It's because JSN, and when they're under center, first down play action, they run him so much on those overs and inbreakers. It creates so much space for the other players on the field.
Yeah, I love that tape. It reminds me of a lot of what Andre Johnson used to impact in Houston, Gary Kubiak and Kyle Shanahan. And I remember Kyle often talking about install, and that was the part of the game where he would move Andre in all these different places. Andre would be in the slot. He'd be outside. He'd motion him out to in to out, across the formation, bring him back, line him up in the backfield. And I think what you'll see in this game is Clint Kubiak doing that early on, partly to have success, partly to get information.
Yeah.
All right, what are you doing? What's New England's plan? When I move JSN on first down from the slot outside in, what's their call? What's their check? Vice versa and whatnot. And when you hear Cooper Kupp talk about the route running, it reminds me of Isaac Bruce. You know, where the shoulders never go up or down. They're just kind of steady throughout. There's just no idea from a defensive back of, like, what's the likeliest route.
Yeah, I think what I love about what you both are saying is how great players affect the entire football field. If this was basketball, and Swag will understand this, if this was basketball, JSN and Kenneth Walker are constantly in the pick and roll, where they are the focal point, right? Like, they can go into the huddle and say, I need the ball. But everybody else feeds off of them. And so whether it's play action or they're doubling JSN, now Cooper Kupp gets opportunity. The fact that he lines up in the backfield, he plays number one, he plays the slot. And also, to me, stacks and condensed splits make it extremely hard to not pay a ton of attention to him, because you're always putting him in traffic. When a receiver is in traffic, now you are attracting bodies. And if you look at some of the plays the Cooper Kupps make, the tight ends make when they're wide open, they are late developing in the play because so much attention has gone to Jaxon.
Yeah, I think it'd be really interesting. Just Clint Kubiak, like, what's the answer?
But he's so good in games. Like, you think about the Rams game where JSN really didn't do anything in the first half. And then when you see defenses bracketing him, Kubiak is so good, to your point about moving him around, trying to find ways to get him matchups. And JSN never gets frustrated himself.
I think the other piece of it is, too, though, he understands he's going to get his at some point. That's the reason you don't have to get frustrated. It's not even that we have to have you number one in the progression, or we have to make sure we call this play for you. It's eventually, through the flow of the offense, you'll have your chance. And when he does, he seems to always capitalize. And like Dan says, every route, the stem, the top of the route, they look the same. And when the movement happens, you separate so much.
He's so talented. Darnold's 18 completions of 20 or more air yards to Smith-Njigba are the most this season by any QB wide receiver combo. And we're going to talk about the Patriots' answer to this. We continue to break down every angle of the Super Bowl 60. There's a look at sparkling Levi's Stadium just about 35 miles down the road. It's going to take you a while to get there, though. I'm just telling you, traffic's been a little much here. But we expect that on a Super Bowl week. Christian Gonzalez has been a lockdown defender this postseason as we talk about how the Patriots can answer JSN on the other side. Opposing quarterbacks are completing just 39% of their passes with him in coverage this postseason, on pace to be the lowest in a single season postseason since NFL Next Gen began tracking in 2018. He's allowed no touchdowns with an interception. He's just been, lockdown's the best way to describe it, right? And Dan, we spoke at length about JSN, the last block. What can New England try to do defensively to answer that on the other side?
Yeah, so 1, pass off, 2, palms. And this is something we've talked about. JSN and the crossers start on one side of the field, and this play action or crossing concept. New England is notorious for this. They didn't do it a ton this year, but there's a clip in the Denver game, and this is going to be palms, okay? So that linebacker's responsible for what we call the curl to flat area. This is quarters, so everybody's responsible for a quarter of the field in defense. Those 2 defenders at the bottom of the screen are playing palms. They're reading that slot receiver. Once that slot receiver outbreaks, it becomes cover 2. The corner drives it, the safety plays over the top. So that's one way where they'll try to have extra bodies on him. The other part is this pass off. When a crossing route happens, the man in coverage passes it off to the safety, he cuts it and goes over the top. The palms thing for me is always from the quarterback's thought. I'm always like, it's hard at times for us, but I always know there's a shot down the field if you're not on the same page.
Well, see, that's the point, though. Like, I'm trying to think about the amount of times I've seen Sam Darnold in Seattle take hole shots, right? The reason that I would love to see palms or love to see 2 safeties high is because I always think it's a great defense for condensed splits, deep crossers. When you look at teams that have had success against Tua Tagovailoa and the Miami Dolphins, a lot of times you've seen them in cover 2 or palms or 2 buster, where you're passing off things with people who can see it from high to low. That's why it's so difficult in cover 3. I also wonder what you do with Christian Gonzalez if you ever say, okay, we got to get him more man-to-man. Do you put him on Rashid Shaheed and allow them to be one-on-one, or with Cooper Kupp, and then you double team or you play the cloud coverage to JSN? And so now you have an eye on him.
11.
Yeah, double 11, where you could put hands, on him, have someone over the top, and I would never play in and out because he's too good of a route.
How does that change though with him moving? No.
The way that it changes when he moves is now you can just change the sides. The problem is you're never going to be upset, to me, in my opinion, if Carlton Davis has to end up on Rashid Shaheed or Cooper Kupp, because it's a change of strength motion. What you never want is for JSN to end up in the man-to-man. That would be the guy that's the second wide receiver.
So for those who don't know, the 1-double recommendation is really interesting because that's what the Patriots used famously.
Yes. They did it with Darrelle Revis.
And I think it does make sense. It does. I do think, though, Gonzalez, as great as he is, Shaheed can get him with his speed. You remember Marvin Mims, obviously, in the AFC Championship, beat him on the go route. And I also think if they end up playing any form of man coverage, there's here you see here Gonzo. I mean, he just got beat. Like Mims has.
But that's been there. That shot that's on the backside.
Exactly.
You can take a shot at the safety. I think this is a little bit more on the safety than Gonzo.
Why you go get Rashid Shaheed and you bring in that speed. Because you've seen this all year. You talked about them cutting the crossers. Teams will do that to JSN. It does create opportunities for the other players. I think with if the Patriots were to play a decent amount of man coverage, which they've not been a man coverage team for most of the year, despite having man corners in Davis and Gonzalez, my concern would actually be less JSN, even though I do think he would get his still against Gonzo, whoever.
Tight end.
And more about the tight ends, the backs. We talk about Walker, if you can get him on the linebackers in the passing game. This is what's scary about this. As much as it flows through JSN, they do have other skill players who can beat you, and they can also use them to hunt matchups.
That's why the Cooper Kupp being in this game is huge. Just the understanding of space and where to go. I want to get to this New England Patriots defense. We talked about them, and we haven't really locked in on how good they've been. They've been phenomenal as well. Now we talk about what the other teams were missing, so it kind of dilutes that conversation. But there's also within this defense of Mike Vrabel of wanting to keep things in front of him, there will be those open holes in this zone. There will be these opportunities to find space for Drake May and move this football down the field. Excuse me. So you look at this defense from New England, right? And it's about about finding where the open spot is. You got this slot on an out route. To me, that's open.
Yeah.
To me, that is where your eyes need to get to with an understanding of this is going to be getting the ball out of quick. Mina, which lends itself to what you said earlier about this defense. If you can find those opportunities early in downs, sometimes, and then you know this, sometimes the play is called, there's an expectation for your first read, and if that first read is taken away, it's about how fast can you get to those next ones. And I think New England gives you a lot of those opportunities when they play zone. The problem is Milton Williams has been so good at pressing the pocket that you feel some panic before you can find that area. That is how they tie in secondary and pass rush.
Seeing that clips.
But Seattle also has to take a shot on the safeties in the first 2 series.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
They have played overly aggressive in these playoffs. And it's why they've been able to get breakups on quick digs, on square ends. To me, I'm calling dig and go early on in this game, and I'm not doing it with JSN.
Yeah.
I'm doing it with Rashid Shaheed because I believe they will be primed to allow that play to hit and get over the top early.
Do you think there is a level of respect that Mike Vrabel and this staff is going to have for Sam Darnold that he didn't have for Stroud, obviously not Stidham? Do you think anything changes with that mindset based on what this quarterback from Seattle
I have a
has
level
shown?
of respect for the skill players.
Yes, and I also think the level of respect for the scheme diversity, all the things that you just and you never see Darnold throw the ball from the same spot 2 times in a row.
Right.
It's 3-step, it's 5-step, it's boot to the left, boot to the right, it's roll behind the guard, roll behind the tackle. I think that's the challenging thing from that perspective.
They just always give him so many answers on first down. I think where you see what you're talking about come to play is if it gets to 3rd down, that's where you start to worry about Darnold.
Totally.
All right, are you guys ready for us to make some Super Bowl picks? Yeah, that's coming up next. Sunday at 6:30 Eastern, these 2 teams will figure out which one ends up hoisting that Lombardi. You see them talking about it. It's becoming even more real. And Marcus, when you look at this game, what's one thing that you think will define Super Bowl 60?
A young man by the name of Dwayne Carter, a.k.a. Lil Wayne, has said, what is a goon to a goblin?
Ooh.
And Leonard Williams is a goblin. and the other side of that is Milton Williams is a goblin, who we haven't talked about enough, who's taken over games for the New England Patriots on the interior. He is doing exactly what they paid him to do. For as much as we've talked about the Seattle Seahawks defensive line, these 2 interior guys between Christian Barmore and Milton Williams have impacted games as much as anybody in these playoffs. And I think in order for New England to have a shot at winning this game and winning it straight up, those 2 are who we are going to have to talk about after the game.
I don't know if you can talk about pivotal matchups in this game and not mention the name Will Campbell.
Yeah.
Since returning from injury, Will Campbell has truly been an Achilles heel for this offense. And Drake May, the pressure that we've seen created from the left side of the offensive line of the New England Patriots. And if you're Mike McDonald on this Seahawk defense, you're going to try to get as many one-on-one matchups as you can with the young rookie. And believe me, he is going to be the fish. There are going to be arguments on the sideline of who gets to line up on the right side of the defensive line.
We've been showing you guys explosive Seattle pass plays all week. Most of them happen on first down. Under center, play action. Jaxon Smith-Njigba running deep on the crosser. They average nearly 9 yards a pass on first down this season, second only to New England Patriots. Milton Williams versus the interior of the Seahawks offensive line is a mismatch. But he might not get the opportunity to affect the game if Seattle is efficient and explosive on first down. When they can create that run-pass conflict, it's when they're the best.
Yeah, going last on this one is outstanding.
Yeah, there you go, Dan. Dan drew the short ball.
All right, turnovers.
Kickers.
Who can weather the storm? Both of these teams lead the NFL or tops in the NFL when it comes to first quarter scoring differential. So, like, who comes out and throws the first punch, and then who can kind of punch back? Seattle, plus 79. First quarter outscoring their opponents, New England, plus 45. So what team kind of takes that lead early on? But if that's the case, what team in that first quarter can kind of throw that counter punch back?
Dan, this is really interesting, but there was a baby that was stealing the show back here. Wait, where's the baby?
Show us the baby.
Little baby.
I'll take the baby.
He's so
Simba.
cute,
Simba.
Oh, Dan. Oh, Dan's got the baby.
Dig.
Dan's not going to give the baby
another baby.
Look at the baby like, what the hell?
Baby.
I need another babe. I need another kid.
Uh-oh. Tiffany's at home like, no, Dan, don't come home. Don't come home.
So many
Look how cute.
Dan's got 4 kids. He's asking for
I
another.
thought they were saying Vrabel. They were saying baby the whole time.
baby.
Dan, get a man his baby back.
Yeah, that baby is really cute.
That's a real cute baby.
Also, that baby is way chiller than my 2 babies because just dealt with it. By the way, Dan, you had 11 career fumbles. I'm glad that wasn't number 12. All right, let's talk about this game. That's what I'm told in my ear. ESPN Analytics simulated the Super Bowl 10,000 times, and the Seahawks were victorious in 60% of those simulations. The average score difference in those 10,000 matchups was the Seahawks by about 3.5 points. Currently, DraftKings Sportsbook has Seattle as a 4.5-point favorite. Swagu, you first. Who you got in this game?
I remember being in New England. It was snowing, and the Houston Texans were coming into town.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, there is no way you're going to be able to beat the Houston Texans with the way that defense is played. We've talked about Seattle defense and how good they've been all season long. I'm taking Seattle. I'm taking the Seahawks, man. I think they're a complete team. I think the offense will show up.
All right. We have spent this entire week talking about the matchups, both sides of the ball between these teams. Most of those matchups favor the Seattle Seahawks. Top to bottom, the roster is better. If Sam Darnold protects the football, limits turnovers, I do not see how Seattle loses this game. I'm picking Seattle.
Yeah, I think every team.
As a fan.
I think every team has their moment, and it feels like the Seattle Seahawks are destined for this moment. The way that this defense has played all year, the story behind Sam Darnold, and Jaxon Smith-Njigba's absolute excellence at the position. This is a team under Mike McDonald that knew exactly who they needed to be, and they'll be that on Sunday evening.
Yeah, I'm taking Seattle. They've been one of the more dominant football teams we've seen in the NFL the last 10 years. I think New England's defense can keep them in it. I have so much respect for Mike Vrabel as a coach. But Seattle has been, with the Rams, the 2 best teams in football all year. Seattle plays their A game. They control the football game. They win.
Boogie, please.
We are in danger of the NFL Live curse affecting Super Bowl 60, but it's not going to happen. Go with the Patriots.
Yes, Boogie!
You guys love me, and you should. All right, but here's why. I actually think Drake May and his legs is going to be the key factor in this game. I think he's going to step up in huge moments. Yeah, and I'm doing it for you, Mina. I'm doing it for you. But seriously, Drake May's going to stand up, and it's going to be great, and they're going to win, and you guys are all going to be wrong.
And I'm good with that.
On Sunday night, when we see you as part of the Handoff Show, which tune in around 1 a.m. Eastern Time, we'll talk about how I'm right and you guys are wrong. And then we'll see you again on Monday in Disneyland. We've got all kinds of great coverage still coming up. Thanks to everybody for being here. Thanks to our incredible staff back in Bristol, Connecticut. We love you guys, and we appreciate everybody for tuning in. Enjoy Super Bowl 60. SportsCenter with Matt and Hannah's next.